everybody, welcome back to Let's Talk. My name is John, and today here on the channel, we are going to be talking about 1973's Enter the Dragon and its brand new 4K Blu-ray that just came out from Warner Brothers. So Enter the Dragon was originally released 50 years ago back in 1973. It is directed by Robert Clouse, stars Bruce Lee, John Saxon, and Jim Kelly. It tells the tale of Lee, who's sent on assignment to go investigate Han, a suspected crime lord who lives on an island all by himself, but every 3 years he holds a tournament, and he uses this tournament to scope out some new talent to add to his ring of criminals to help him out with distributing drugs and prostitution. But he only does this every 3 years, so you can never get close to him, so they're going to take full advantage of this tournament. And also going to this tournament is John Saxon and Jim Kelly's characters, both of them who used to be buddies and they were in the Vietnam War together. John Saxon has a really bad gambling problem and, he's just getting away from his problems, while Jim Kelly, of course, he's being racially profiled back in the States. He runs away from that. He comes here, and the two of them, along with Lee, are trying to take down this man and his ragtag group of villains along the way. And that's your basic plot of this movie. This is one of the most entertaining films of the 1970s. It is one of the most influential films of all time. It is definitely the most famous martial arts film of all time. Certain films just cross over into mainstream. If you're not a fan of Westerns, you've definitely heard of The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly and Unforgiven. If you're not a fan of musicals, you've heard of West Side Story. If you're not a fan of sci-fi films, you know the name Alien. And for the martial arts films, Enter the Dragon is that film. And Bruce Lee is one of the most iconic martial artists, and he's probably one of the most famous names you've ever heard. Along with his son Brandon Lee, the two of them have both tragic stories. They died at very young ages. Bruce Lee passed away at the age of 32, while Brandon Lee only passed away at the age of 28. But they both left long-lasting legacies behind. Bruce Lee's legacy is still continuing to this day. If you saw Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, we're still talking about Bruce Lee and what he did for martial arts and what he did for film in general. He was very proud of this film. This was his last completed film before his death. He actually died only 1 month before the premiere of this film, but he did get to see the final cut of it, and he liked what he saw, and he should, because this movie, like I said, is just extremely entertaining, extremely influential. Even if you're not a fan of martial arts films, like I'm not a big fan of martial arts films. I don't ever run back to martial arts films, but this is probably the one that I've seen the most, and it's just because it's great. It takes things from a bunch of different types of films that were big at the time. James Bond was on the rise, and it's funny because this movie clearly had a huge influence on the James Bond film, The Man with the Golden Gun. They took basically the entire plot of this movie and brought it over to that, because literally The Man with the Golden Gun takes place on an island with a guy training a bunch of other martial artists working under him, and it also ends in a funhouse, like this movie ends in a funhouse. Well, it's not technically a funhouse, it's just a room with a bunch of funhouse mirrors, but it's almost the exact same ending. So The Man with the Golden Gun really owes a lot to Enter the Dragon, but Enter the Dragon does that all 10 times better. It also has huge influence from the blaxploitation films, and the movie is just paced phenomenally. Like in the 1970s, when you think in 1970s films, the movies, they could be a little bit slowly paced. That is not an issue with this movie. This movie is moving along from the time you get into it. It's only 102 minutes. It flies by. Bruce Lee actually did all the stunt coordinating as far as coordinating all the fight scenes, and it really shows on screen, because that stuff is really what captivates you. Can it be cheesy and over the top at points? Absolutely. This has a nice thick layer of 1970s cheese all over that, but if you're a fan of that, this is probably the king of the mountain. And you can see the huge inspiration of blaxploitation films on this, and it's having Jim Kelly in it. This is really what took his career off, and he became one of the most famous blaxploitation actors of all time. This actually earned him a 3-film deal with Warner Brothers, and he wasn't even supposed to be in the movie. The original actor dropped out at the last minute, and they called this guy up because he was very well known for his martial arts skills. Same thing with John Saxon. John Saxon was very known for his martial arts skills at the time, and this would probably become one of his 2 most famous roles. I would say either this or playing the sheriff/dad in Nightmare on Elm Street. So this movie has had a huge influence, still going to this very day. People still bring up Enter the Dragon. They're still entertained by this movie, and I don't blame them. Like I said, not a huge fan of martial arts films, but I could watch this one every couple of years, enjoy the hell out of it, have a great time with it. The score is another thing I haven't brought up yet. The score for this film is phenomenal. It's shot beautifully. For an $850,000 budget, this movie was made, and that was a tight budget. They would not let them go over that, and this movie to this day has been estimated to have earned about $2 billion adjusted for inflation, which is incredible. It's still a cash cow style for Warner Brothers to this very day, and them releasing this new 4K Blu-ray is just going to keep adding to what this movie made. It made $90 million during its initial run at the box office. They were promoting this heavily. It cost them about $1 million just to promote this film, which was a big deal at the time. This is only 2 years before Jaws came out, so they kind of rolled films out differently back then, but they made a lot of money with this movie. People loved this movie, and rightfully so. It's definitely one, if you're a cinephile and you're not a fan of martial arts films and you're going to check out only one of them, this is that film. I highly recommend it just from the enjoyment factor. Don't go into this expecting The Godfather or Apocalypse Now if you're looking at other films from the 1970s that are really going to be deep think pieces. This is not that film. This is more of an entertaining film with a very simple plot, but it's just one that you have to admire in the martial arts genre, and you have to see it for yourself. But now let's talk about this new 4K Blu-ray from Warner Brothers. But before we do that, if you are a fan of 4K Blu-ray reviews, movie reviews, lists, podcasts, shorts, we try and do them all here on the channel, and nothing would help this channel out more than by just simply liking this video and subscribing to the channel. Well, here it is, Enter the Dragon on 4K Blu-ray, courtesy of Warner Brothers, celebrating their 100th anniversary and this film's 50th anniversary. You can also pick this up on steelbook. And you would think, okay, this is one of Warner Brothers' most popular films of all time. They're celebrating it with their 100th anniversary, throwing on that beautiful 100th anniversary slipcover, giving it the steelbook treatment. Wow, this must be loaded with special features, right? Oh, would you look at that? None. No, there are absolutely zero special features on there. They will promote it like there is, because there is an introduction from Bruce Lee's widowed wife talking about what he saw before the movie came out and how happy he was. She gives the introduction to the special edition of the 4K. You do get both versions of it on the 4K. You get the theatrical cut and the special edition, and they're all on that 4K, and you can watch the trailer. And that is it. There's also a commentary track if you're into that. But if you were looking for interviews, making ofs, behind the scenes shots, storyboarding, a bunch of little featurettes, none of that is here. I thought that they were starting that with Rio Bravo and East of Eden, but it turns out Warner Brothers also cheaped out when it came to this as far as extras go. I was really surprised. For a movie like this, like I said, huge influence on not just martial arts films, blaxploitation films, and spy films, but just on the action film genre in general, to have absolutely zero special features, have no new interviews, couldn't even splurge for a nice making of documentary for a film that's this important to the genre, that's this important to film in general, is absolutely sad to me. I'm very upset that they couldn't even do that. Now, you can make up for that with a great disc, which the 4K scan is taken from the original film negative, which I do really appreciate because it shows on screen. It is gorgeous. Now, it doesn't have Dolby Vision, it just has HDR10, but it is a huge upgrade over previous versions of this film. It looked absolutely gorgeous. 10 out of 10 on the visuals. I mean, the colors just pop off your screen. There's a lot of colors in this movie, so you really do appreciate that. You notice that. Most of this film takes place outdoors, so the blue sky is shining in the background. That's just going to pop off your screen. The contrast ratio is gorgeous. Deep blacks. It's really in line with a lot of the Warner Brothers 4Ks that have come out over the last year, really starting with the Warner Brothers Christmas 4Ks that came out last year, carrying over to films like Training Day, Cool Hand Luke. Like, their quality of transferring their movies to 4K is really only second to maybe to Sony or even Paramount. The three of them, they're really releasing some great quality 4K discs, especially for studio releases. Very, very impressive. The visuals are absolutely stunning. And you also get, as far as audio goes, a brand new Dolby Atmos track. And for a movie like this that has a great score, a lot of action, you're going to really want that Atmos track, and they do a damn good job on that. Now, just remember that this movie was shot without sound, so everything is ADR'd in as far as dialogue goes, and you know, sound effects go, which, you know, the sound effects in this movie are hugely influential and iconic. The kicks and everything like that, the sound effect that happens, that inspired so many movies throughout the 1970s. Dialogue, though, obviously it's going to overwhelm the track at some points, and that's just because they recorded it after the fact. So even though it's a new Dolby Atmos track, don't expect that to fit in. It might shock you a little bit when you hear the ADR and be like, oh my god, like, that doesn't sound like that voice should come out of that person, and it sounds way too clear. And, you know, it might be a little distracting, but it is the 1970s, and that's always something that's been a part of this film, and it's something that I actually appreciate and admire just because it fits in with this genre of film. But the Dolby Atmos track in general is great. It was making great use of all of your speakers. It's not the best Dolby Atmos track I've ever heard, but it's still a very, very, very solid one, and I wouldn't have expected them to even whip out a Dolby Atmos Atmos track for this film. I expected them to use like a regular 5.1, and you do get the original mono track if you're a fan of that. Especially, I know that this is a film that people love and they grew up with, so you might want to watch it in the original audio. You get that option here as well. But again, that's it. You're only getting brand new upgrades to the visuals and to the audio. And let's go into the packaging so we can actually talk a little bit more about that. So you get a nice slipcover. Again, like I said, you get the steelbook if you want it. You slide this off. Really nice slipcover though. I really can't sell the slipcover short. I love the artwork on it. You get the same artwork underneath. I really do appreciate that. It does look gorgeous. I have no complaints about the artwork. You go inside, like I said, one disc, no pack-in Blu-ray. It's just the 4K, and that is it. And that 4K has absolutely no special features on there. And that really is just what's disappointing to me. I really can't say anything positive about that. It's clearly a cost-cutting measure by Warner Brothers. You know, Paramount has kind of been doing that, where they don't pack in the Blu-ray either, but the 4K usually has a lot of extras on it, so at least you're getting something. They really went completely bare bones on this, and right now it's still $24, and I cannot recommend this at $24 unless you're a huge fan. I say wait for a sale. Black Friday is around the corner. When it's like $15 to $18, that's probably perfect, because all you're going to be getting is the film. And at $24, I cannot recommend you picking up a film just for the film, unless you really, that's all you're there for. If you're just there for the new 4K upgrade, absolutely grab it, especially if you're a fan of this film, because the disc itself, like I said, is the highest of quality. The visuals are stunning, the audio is great. It's just that in comparison, last week I reviewed Nightbreed here on the channel. You could buy it at Best Buy for $32, and now this is $24. That's an $8 difference. Nightbreed is 4 discs. You get a 4K, a Blu-ray version of that 4K. You get a director's cut, and you get a 4th bonus disc. And 3 of the 4 discs have extra features on it. So for $32, you can get everything you could ever imagine: a slipcover, alternate box art, individual disc design. And what do you get with this? You just get the movie. Now, Enter the Dragon carries a lot more name value than Nightbreed does, but there is a lot more effort put into Nightbreed than there was put into this movie, and that's really a shame. You can see Warner Brothers cut every corner they could possibly cut. At least they didn't cut any corners when it comes to the disc itself. It is the highest quality of this movie. It looks gorgeous. It sounds great. You're going to be very happy with it if you're a fan of Enter the Dragon. You're going to love the upgrade. But if you're somebody who's in the extras, making of documentaries, unfortunately, you're going to be just like me and be extremely disappointed by what you got here. I'm definitely upset that I bought this at the full price. I really wish I didn't. I would have rather have waited. I'm glad I have it on 4K. I'm glad it's in my collection. I'm glad I can watch it every couple of years in the highest of quality, but I cannot hide my disappointment with the lack of extras. That is just bad business practice, and it's not a surprise coming from Warner Brothers, who just love to do things that really hurt the consumer. They're only there for the bottom line. They make it very well known all the time that all they care about is money.
The sweet smell of an all-day sucker.
And that they don't really care about the consumer. They'll do the bare minimum like they did here, and that's all they're going to do. So I can't really hide my disappointment. If I was going to give this 4K a score of 1 to 10, I'm going to give it a 7 out of 10, because the quality of that disc cannot be denied. It really is 10 out of 10 visuals, 8 out of 10 audio. It's just that no extras at all is just insanely disappointing, and it's just something I cannot move past. When we came to DVD, the big selling point of DVD over VHS was the ability to have extras on there, have making of documentaries. Now, I understand if you don't want to make new ones, but at least give us the stuff you already had. You know, that's the stuff that really bothers me. And for an iconic film like this, celebrating 50 years, it deserved better. Criterion or Arrow Video would have definitely gave this the treatment it deserves, and it really does bother me that this is what we got. So overall, like I said, 7 out of 10. I say wait for a sale, because the disc itself is definitely worth it. But anyway, guys, I hope you enjoyed this review. I hope you have a good day. And if you want to keep supporting this channel, nothing supports this channel more than by you just simply liking this video and subscribing to the channel. And then after you're done doing all that, maybe you want to go to an island and tell all your friends there about us. But anyway, guys, we'll be seeing you around.